When people show you who they are, believe them. What we've seen from Blake Lively is her showing you know who she really is.
Blake Lively is facing renewed scrutiny after Justin Baldoni's legal team released new evidence that they argue undermines her claims. Lively has sought approximately $300 million in damages, alleging that she lost earnings and future opportunities after being unfairly labeled a mean girl by Baldoni's camp. However, critics argue that her own statements and public comments now contradict key parts of her case, potentially weakening her legal position. As a result, many believe the strategy has backfired, fueling debate over whether the negative public perception was the result of a coordinated campaign or simply reflected existing opinions.
I think we all deep down knew that Blake Lively was a mean girl. Like, it's well documented. Everybody's seen those interviews.
With all the legal drama now appearing to work against Blake Lively, the bigger question remains, is the mean girl reputation actually deserved? Instead of focusing only on the courtroom battle, let's revisit an older interview clip that many of you have probably seen before. It's been circulating online for years and has become one of the most talked about moments in discussions about Blake's public image. Take another look and decide for yourself whether it supports the criticism or if it's been taken out of context.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
Rather than simply saying thank you or acknowledging the journalist's compliment, Blake's response quickly became the focus of criticism. During the interview, she turned her chair away from the reporter, avoided making eye contact for much of the conversation, and directed nearly all of her attention toward her co-star instead. Those moments have since been cited by critics as examples of behavior they viewed as dismissive or unprofessional. Similar criticism resurfaced following another interview in 2017 while promoting All I See Is You. In that interview, the journalist politely asked what kinds of acting roles she hoped to take on over the next 5 years. Instead of giving a straightforward answer, Blake responded in a way that many viewers interpreted as unexpectedly sharp, reigniting debate over her interview style and public demeanor.
So do you feel free now to try everything? What is the next 5 years of...
The interviewer appeared caught off guard by Blake's response and tried to clarify what he meant. Before he could fully explain, however, she interrupted him, insisting that she actually does sing in the film. She then questioned whether he had even watched the movie before interviewing her, a moment that many viewers interpreted as confrontational. After the interviewer repeatedly assured her that he had seen the film, Blake turned toward her team off camera and jokingly suggested that they should give him a pop quiz at the end of the interview. While some saw the exchange as playful banter, others viewed it as unnecessarily dismissive, making the clip another frequently cited example in discussions about her public interactions with interviewers.
You apparently are not going to sing if you didn't think you can sing.
I sang in this movie.
Well,
Did you see the movie?
I did see the movie. But I mean...
We're going to give you a pop quiz.
There's going to be a pop quiz every minute of it.
Yeah.
It's a complicated pop quiz, though.
Yeah, it would be complicated. Yes.
Many viewers questioned Blake's reaction, arguing that the interviewer had simply asked a routine question and then attempted to clarify it after the conversation appeared to go off track. From that perspective, the suggestion of giving him a pop quiz struck some people as unnecessarily confrontational rather than lighthearted. Others, however, interpreted the exchange as awkward humor that didn't land well. The clips gained widespread attention online because they allowed audiences to form their own opinions based on the footage itself. As a result, critics have argued that the negative perception of Blake's behavior developed long before her legal dispute with Justin Baldoni, while supporters maintain that isolated interview moments should not define someone's character.
If anyone's still a fan of Blake Lively, I think recheck your decision on that because she's not very nice to the common people.
Critics argue that the behavior alleged during the production of It Ends With Us was not an isolated incident or a reaction to a particular working environment. Instead, they point to earlier interviews and public appearances as evidence of what they see as a long-standing pattern. In their view, those clips, which have circulated online for years, shaped public perceptions well before the current legal dispute. Supporters, however, dispute that conclusion, arguing that brief public moments do not necessarily reflect a person's overall character or conduct behind the scenes.
She was always known as somebody that was difficult to work with. Those rumors were always following her.
At this point, You might think the situation couldn't become any more embarrassing for Blake Lively, but according to her critics, the controversy only intensifies from here. They argue that the biggest issue isn't just the legal battle itself, but what they see as a contradiction between her public claims and her own actions behind the scenes. In their view, while Blake portrayed herself as a contractually employed actress who was being mistreated by her director, new allegations and evidence have fueled debate over whether her conduct aligned with the image she presented publicly. Whether those claims ultimately hold up remains a matter for the legal process, but they have become a major point of discussion surrounding the case.
Blake Lively is trying to ruin the life of a man who did nothing to her other than cast her in his movie and try to make her happy. And yet there is no making Blake Lively happy. That's what seems clear.
According to court filings and reporting surrounding the case, Blake Lively sought recognition for her work as a producer on It Ends With Us. As part of that effort, she reportedly submitted a letter describing the contributions she believed she made throughout the production. In that letter, she outlined involvement in a wide range of areas, including creative discussions, script revisions, production planning, meetings with studio executives, editing, marketing decisions, and other aspects of the filmmaking process. Critics argue that these descriptions appear difficult to reconcile with her separate claims that she was mistreated during production, particularly because the letter reportedly characterized Justin Baldoni as a creative partner rather than her boss or employer. They contend that this apparent inconsistency has become a central issue in the legal dispute. The matter drew further attention when a federal judge reportedly referenced portions of her own statements in a ruling issued on April 2nd, adding another layer to an already closely watched case.
The vast majority of it, she had 13 claims in her lawsuit. 10 have been dismissed. The big ones being all the claims for defamation and also the claims about on the set.
After a series of setbacks, many expected Blake Lively's legal team to take a more cautious approach. Instead, according to critics, they doubled down. As key allegations came under increasing scrutiny, her attorneys sought additional evidence to support their claim that Justin Baldoni and his associates had coordinated a campaign to damage her public reputation. In an effort to bolster that argument, they submitted a secretly recorded phone call to the federal court, presenting it as evidence they believed supported their case. Whether that recording ultimately strengthens their claims remains for the court to determine, but its inclusion quickly became another major point of contention in the ongoing legal battle.
You know, it's so interesting because you work with so many people and almost everybody's nice. And then there's Blake, who's just totally different than everyone else.
I'm sorry.
One of the recordings cited in the legal dispute reportedly came from filmmaker Claire Ayub, who was not involved in the production of It Ends With Us, but had previously worked on a separate Wayfarer Studios project. According to court filings, Ayub claimed she had a negative experience with Justin Baldoni during that earlier project. At a later point, an assistant to Steve Sarowitz, the co-founder of Wayfarer Studios, contacted her to arrange a meeting. Believing the discussion might involve pressure to stay silent, Ayub allegedly recorded the phone call without informing Sarowitz. The recording quickly became a source of legal controversy because California is generally a two-party consent state for recording confidential phone conversations, meaning all participants typically must be aware of and agree to the recording. Critics argue that Sarowitz neither knew he was being recorded nor gave his consent, raising questions about the recording's legal admissibility. Ultimately, however, whether the recording can be used as evidence and what weight it should carry are decisions for the court.
I still don't know that we won't have to go into court. Sure. I just know that for right now, it seems like détente. And then if they insist and they push to the limits, then we'll go to court. And then it's all on me. Then I'll be working harder than Jamie did.
According to critics of Blake Lively's legal strategy, submitting the secretly recorded phone call ultimately backfired. They argue that if the recording was obtained in violation of California's recording laws, relying on it as evidence raised questions about the strength of the underlying case. From their perspective, it suggested the legal team was searching for evidence rather than presenting clear proof already in hand. They also contend that the recording failed to support the conclusions it was intended to establish. A short excerpt, in which Steve Sarowitz referred to there being blood by the time the matter was over, was cited as evidence of alleged hostility. However, Wayfair Studios reportedly requested that the entire recording be considered so the statement could be evaluated in its full context. Critics argue that, when the complete conversation was reviewed, it undermined the narrative presented by Blake's attorneys. They further claim that Clara Youb spoke for the majority of the call, accounting for roughly 68.5% of the conversation, while Steve Sarowitz spoke for about 31.5%. According to that interpretation, Youb repeatedly asked leading questions in an effort to elicit statements that could later be used to support the allegations, though the significance of the recording remains a matter of dispute in the ongoing legal proceedings.
Every time I've seen that, or some of the comments I see, or on the flip, they'll say that Blake sold her cut back to, and I was like, that's not how it works. You own the footage. Like, that's not how it, and people will say it so confidently. And they'll be like, yeah, because they bankrolled the movie. And I'm like, that's not how that's not how it works.
Right. But we just sit there quietly and let them think what they want. And, ultimately we're not going to, but Blake and Ryan are billionaires. I don't think they are, actually.
As the conversation continued, Clara Youb repeatedly questioned Steve Sarowitz about whether legal action would be taken against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. According to critics' interpretation of the full recording, Sarowitz did not make the kinds of threatening statements that had been suggested. Instead, he explained that his priority was protecting his company and responding through the legal process, if necessary. Supporters of this view argue that, when heard in full, the recording portrays a discussion about defending Wayfair Studios' interests rather than evidence of a coordinated effort to damage Blake Lively's reputation. Ultimately, however, the recording's meaning and significance remain matters for the court to evaluate.
If they ever get me to that point, then I'll make it worth their while, because I'm going to spend a lot of money to make sure the studio is protected. But I don't think we'll go there.
Critics of Blake Lively's legal arguments contend that Steve Sarowitz's comments reflected a standard response from a business owner facing the prospect of litigation. From that perspective, discussing the need to protect a company and defend it through the legal system is viewed as a routine business practice rather than evidence of a coordinated smear campaign. They also point out that, throughout the recording, Sarowitz spoke positively about Justin Baldoni, describing him as someone he respected and believed to be a person of strong character. Supporters of this interpretation argue that, when the conversation is heard in full, it presents a very different picture from the one they say was conveyed by selected excerpts. Ultimately, however, how the recording should be interpreted remains an issue for the court to consider.
Basically, people love Justin, and they still love Justin.
Yeah, that's good.
And if you meet Justin, how could you not love Justin?
According to critics of Blake Lively's legal strategy, the dispute escalated significantly after the controversy surrounding the recorded phone call. They argue that her legal team issued broad federal subpoenas to major telecommunications and internet companies, including AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, AOL, and Cloudflare, as well as to PR consultant Jed Wallace, seeking communications and related records connected to individuals associated with Justin Baldoni. Baldoni's attorney, Mitchell Schuster, criticized the requests as overly broad, arguing that they swept in information relating to family members and other individuals who had no involvement in the underlying dispute. He reportedly told the court, "This is civil litigation, not a criminal prosecution, and the Lively parties are not the FBI," contending that the subpoenas exceeded what was appropriate for a civil case. Critics also point to legal actions directed at several YouTube creators, including one channel with a very small subscriber base, as evidence that the strategy was overly aggressive. PR crisis expert Eric Schiffer sharply criticized the approach, arguing that pursuing such small creators in federal court risked creating the appearance of intimidation rather than strengthening the legal case. Supporters of the subpoenas, however, maintain they were intended to gather evidence relevant to the litigation. Whether the requests were justified or overly broad remains an issue to be resolved through the legal process.
From the very start, this case was about somebody being wrongfully accused, and that's Justin.
Before many of the court filings and supporting documents became public, Justin Baldoni faced intense criticism. Much of the online conversation had already turned against him. Media coverage largely reflected the allegations made against him, and many observers questioned what the controversy would mean for his career. That changed when he retained attorney Brian Friedman, who quickly signaled that Baldoni's defense would focus on documentary evidence rather than public relations. In public statements, Friedman argued that contemporaneous documents, messages, and videos presented a different account from the one circulating in the media, emphasizing that the case should be decided on evidence rather than headlines. He also suggested that upcoming depositions would provide greater clarity because witnesses would be required to testify under oath. Baldoni's legal team then took the unusual step of launching a public website containing court filings and supporting materials related to the case. Among the documents was an extensive timeline outlining the development of It Ends With Us, including communications dating back to 2019 between Baldoni and author Colleen Hoover regarding the film adaptation. According to those materials, Hoover expressed confidence early in the process that Baldoni was the right person to bring her novel to the screen. Supporters of Baldoni argue that these records demonstrate his long-standing involvement in developing the project before Blake Lively joined the production. They further contend that publishing complete, unedited communications made it more difficult for individual messages or excerpts to be interpreted without their broader context. Ultimately, however, the significance of these materials and the competing interpretations offered by both sides remains a matter for the courts to determine.